So you've unlocked the Meteor Class in Frosthaven, and you're wondering what cards you should take as you level up. Well, I'm about to tell you, but first, one more spoiler warning, and if you don't want to know anything about the unlockable classes in Frosthaven, don't watch this video. If you do, though, we're here for you. Final spoiler warning, if you don't want to know about unlockable classes in Frosthaven, why are you still watching this? If you do, and you specifically want to know about the Meteor class, hopefully you've watched my first class overview guide. If you haven't, I'll include a link to it here. But we're going to be looking at your level 2 through 9 cards at this point. A quick word before I get into that, I'm going to be making some recommendations as we go about what cards you want to replace as you pick these up. This is always variable. As you know, you always have access to cards that you've unlocked. That includes all of your level 1 cards and your level X cards. So I'm going to be recommending sort of a generic hand for any scenario you might face. But obviously you might want to move things around and bring different cards depending on what you're going up against. So with all of that out of the way, let's take a look at your level 2 cards as the Pyro class. First up, we have Deep Fury. Our first level 2 card comes in with an initiative of 38. It gives you a standard attack of 3, but it gets much juicier if you are occupying hazardous terrain. You get to add 1 damage and 2 push to your attack. Plus you get an XP and you get to heal for 2. The bottom half is a self-heal of 3, plus you get to double your next attack targeting an enemy occupying hazardous terrain. Our other option is Searing Smoke. It has an initiative of 45. The top half gives you an attack of 2 on all adjacent enemies. You can consume fire to add 1 damage and gain 1 XP. You can also consume a leaf to add muddle and gain an XP. The bottom half is a movement of 4 with a jump, which is nice, but even better, you get to muddle any enemies you jump over during the movement. Lava Pyro class should absolutely take Deep Fury. It combos nicely with all of that hazardous terrain you're generating, and it gives you access to another healing option that doesn't come with a debuff attached. To take it, we're going to give up Eruption. Both Eruption and Igneous Path are lost cards that have the potential to generate a lot of hazardous terrain, but Igneous Path is much more reliable and much faster. Rock Pyro class will want to take Searing Smoke. You're going to be on the front lines more often, so you'll have a better chance of being surrounded by enough enemies to make the top half of the card useful. And the bottom half, with its move plus muddle, can save your bacon when you're constantly in danger of taking hits. To take it, we're going to give up Igneous Path. Again, you really only need 1 big lost card that lets you generate terrain. And since Eruption gives us an obstacle along with its hazardous terrain, it's more useful for this build. Next up, we've got our level 3 cards, starting with Hardened Spike. Slow with an initiative of 80, but powerful. The top half gives you a massive attack of 5, plus you get to add 1 damage and gain an XP if the target is occupying hazardous terrain. Finally, you'll generate a leaf and suffer 1 damage now and over the course of the next 2 turns. The bottom half gives you a move of 3, and you get to add plus 1 damage to your next attack, targeting an enemy adjacent to an obstacle. If you consume a leaf, you get to add plus 3 damage instead and gain an XP, making this potentially another huge hit. Living Magma is our other option with a speedy initiative of 22. The top half is an extremely useful buff. Now and at the start of your next 2 turns, you get to perform an attack of 1 against an enemy adjacent to hazardous terrain. If you perform the attack, it also gets 2 pierce and a wound and generates fire. The bottom half is pretty uninspiring move of 1, but it lets you reposition an adjacent hazardous terrain tile and deal damage to an enemy if you move it under them. The damage is a nice cherry on top, but the real utility here is the ability to reposition your hazardous terrain tiles and set you up for future combos. Lava Pyro class should definitely take Living Magma. The top half is, again, very useful for a character that's generating a lot of hazardous terrain. An attack of 1 isn't all that impressive until you consider that this is essentially a free extra attack with a pierce and a wound for the next 2 turns. It takes some setting up to make sure both you and the enemy are in the right positions, but hey, the bottom half of this card can help you do exactly that. As already stated, it's great for letting you reposition your terrain, and like similar powers, it pairs nicely with anything that increases your movement. To take this, we're going to give up Cool. We don't need to generate obstacles, and we have better healing options now thanks to Deep Fury. Rock Pyro class will want to take Hardened Spike. You'll get access to 2 potentially massive hits, one of which specifically combos off of obstacles. Plus, it's a bottom attack, which is great and a rare option to have. Add to that the fact that the top half is a powerful hit, even if you can't set up the hazardous terrain combo. It only adds 1 extra damage. We're going to give up Liquid Stone. We have other ways of pushing enemies around. Now let's take a look at our level 4 cards. First up, we have Hand of Flame. Hand of Flame is decently speedy at an initiative of 29. The top half is a really nice attack of 4 with a muddle, and it's a terrain generator, letting you place hazardous terrain beneath your target. It also generates fire. The bottom half is a much more standard attack of 2 with a wound. Our other option is Heat Wave. Heat Wave is our fastest card, period, with an insanely fast initiative of 8. The super fast initiative is great because the top half of this card is useful for getting out of tight situations. All adjacent enemies suffer 2 damage. Again, direct damage so it bypasses shields. Then any enemy within 3 hexes of you gets pushed for 2, and you can consume a fire to extend that range by 1. At the start of your next turn, you'll also suffer 2 damage, but if you find yourself surrounded and about to get pummeled, this can be a great way to push everything away from you. The bottom half is a move of 2, but if you consume a fire, you get to generate an obstacle and a leaf element. Lava Pyro class have an interesting choice here. Hand of Flame gives you access to a nice big hit and another way to generate hazardous terrain. Heat Wave gives you a great way to push lots of enemies through all of your hazardous terrain. I think an argument can be made for either card, but for the purposes of this guide, I'm going to recommend Hand of Flame. More ways to generate terrain is usually the safer bet. We're going to give up Metamorphic Rock for this one. It's been useful to have this in our back pocket thus far, but if you're going for a lava build, you don't want to be up in the enemy's faces anyway, and it makes this card less valuable. Rock Pyro class will definitely want to take Heat Wave. The top half is great for this tankier build, and the bottom half gives you another terrain generation option. We'll be giving up Flowing Fire to include this card in our hand. We're losing our nice big move of 6, but the top half is becoming less and less useful to us, and there are better options ahead. At level 5, the first card we're going to look at is Magma Orbs. Magma Orbs is a slow card with an initiative of 82. The top half grants you an attack of 3 with 2 targets within range of 3. You may consume a fire and a leaf to increase that to 3 targets and gain an XP. The bottom half lets you create hazardous terrain in an adjacent tile, then immediately pull an enemy at range of 2 into it. Our other choice is Rain of Fire. Rain of Fire is a great terrain generator with a nice speedy initiative of 21. The top half lets you create 2 hazardous terrain tiles anywhere within range 3. Then anyone adjacent to or occupying one of those spaces suffers 1 damage and you gain an XP. This is another one that can hurt your party or yourself, so be careful with it. The bottom half gives you an incredible move of 5 with a jump, and this time there are no trade-offs for the big movement. Lava Pyro class are going to want to take Rain of Fire. It's a great way to get more hazardous terrain out and deal some direct damage to a lot of enemies while you're at it. We're going to replace Lava Bomb with this, as it's just a better overall way to generate hazardous terrain. Rock Pyro class, on the other hand, will want to take Magma Orbs. It's a great companion for a character that will routinely be surrounded by enemies. The top half lets you deal damage and reposition enemies, while the bottom half lets you bring an enemy in close for one of your hard-hitting melee attacks. We're going to give up Force of Earth for this, as we now have another pool at our disposal, and Force of the Earth is about to be outclassed by an upcoming card. Next, let's take a look at our level 6 cards, starting with Obsidian Shield. Speaking of cards getting outclassed, we have Obsidian Shield coming in with an initiative of 19. The top half grants you a shield of 1 on the next 4 sources of damage to you. Plus, when the token moves off the last use slot on the card, you gain an XP, create an obstacle in an adjacent hex, and deal 5 damage to the enemy that just attacked you. The bottom half gives you a move of 3. You then suffer 2 damage, or you may destroy an obstacle to negate that damage. Finally, you completely negate the next source of damage to you this round. Our other choice is Return to the Source. Return to the Source comes in with a blistering fast initiative of 14. The top half is a 3 damage attack at range 4 with a pull of 3. You also generate a fire. The trade-off is that the next enemy entering hazardous terrain will suffer no damage from it. Things get interesting in the bottom half. You get a move of 4 that lets you ignore hazardous terrain damage during the movement. Hopefully you have the perk that already lets you do this with your own terrain by now, but this can definitely be useful for terrain that comes in the scenario. Then you get to heal yourself for a number equal to the number of hazardous terrain tiles that you just walked over. Lava Pyro class should absolutely take Return to the Source. Getting access to a pool, in addition to all of your pushes, can help you drag a lot of enemies over the coals, literally. Plus, the bottom half of the card gives you access to another great heal. We're going to drop Liquid Stone for this one. We're getting a pull commensurate with the push from that card, plus a bottom move and heal is just better than the push. Rock Pyro class will definitely want to take Obsidian Shield. Your build should really be coming into its own at this point. Obsidian Shield gives you more ways to mitigate damage and both generate obstacles with the top and consume them with the bottom. This is a no-brainer for this build. To take it, we're going to give it Metamorphic Rock. Obsidian Shield provides many of the same benefits, it just does it better. Next up, we're going to look at our level 7 cards, starting with Erupting Rage. Our first level 7 card is pretty slow with an initiative of 70. The top half of Erupting Rage gives us an attack of 4 with a push of 2. But importantly, it lets you push an enemy through obstacles, dealing hazardous terrain to them as you go. Then you replace those obstacles with hazardous terrain. The bottom lets you move for 3 and create hazardous terrain tiles in hexes adjacent to where you both started and ended your movement. Our other choice is Swelter, a pretty spectacular card, honestly. The top half lets you designate an existing hazardous terrain tile at range 4 and explode it. The result is that you get to perform an attack of 3 on any enemy occupying or adjacent to the hex that just exploded. The rest of the text here is confusing. Thanks to the range 5 listed as part of the attack. Big thanks to the r/Gloomhaven community for helping me figure this out. But this is effectively just to designate that this counts as a ranged attack. It doesn't really matter though, because the only enemies that you're able to target with this are either occupying or adjacent to the hex that you just exploded. The important part here is that you also get a Pierce of 2. You then generate fire and gain an XP. All of this with a relatively speedy initiative of 32. The bottom half is even more nuts. All enemies in the same room as you suffer damage equal to the number of hazardous terrain tiles in the room, up to a maximum of 5. And once again, this is direct damage, so it bypasses shields. It's a burner, but in the right situation, this could be a devastating attack. Lava Pyro class should take Swelter. Do I even have to explain why? The card is just that good, and it synergizes beautifully with the way you've been building your character this far. We're going to drop Flowing Fire for this. It's been a great card to have in our pocket, but it's just getting outclassed at this point. This time, Rock Pyroclasts have an interesting decision to make. Erupting Rage is a good card, and it synergizes nicely with their build, so they would be perfectly justified in taking it. However, Swelter is just too good to pass up without at least considering it. It doesn't fit in with the Rock build as well, but it's so great that it might not even matter. You can't go wrong with either decision. Regardless of your choice, you're going to give up Cloud of Ash for this one. Again, the level 1 cards are just starting to get outclassed. We're getting to the top, near the top now, with our level 8 cards, starting with Feed the Beast. So let's start with a card that I'm going to tell you not to take. Feed the Beast has a decent initiative of 27. The top half of the card has a lot of text on it, which should be an indication that it's a bit difficult to set up sometimes. It boils down to this. You have to be next to an obstacle that you can destroy, then you need to have a hazardous terrain tile within range 3 of you, that also has enemies occupying or adjacent to it. You'll destroy the obstacle, then add 2 more hazardous terrain tiles next to the one you targeted with this attack. Enemies occupying the attack you targeted, or in the one of the adjacent tiles where you added hazardous terrain, will each suffer 5 damage. It's potentially a big hit, but the odds that you'll be able to set up everything perfectly to maximize damage output are not that high. You do get an XP for it though. The bottom half gives you a move of 2, then you can destroy a hazardous terrain tile to add its damage to your next attack. Our other choice is Cinderlance. Cinderlance comes in with an initiative of 90. Very slow, yes, but remember that most useful initiative numbers are either very low or very high, so that you can guarantee your place in the order, either the beginning or the end. The top half is an attack of 4, but you can consume fire to add another +2 attack, suffer 2 damage, and gain XP. You can also consume a leaf to add another +2 attack, suffer 1 damage, and gain an XP. If you consume both elements, you can boost this up to a base attack of 8, which is insane. But wait, there's more. If you queue this up with the 4th attack after you've played Quenched Rage, you get to double it. That's right, we're talking about a base attack of 16. Now let's look at the bottom. A move of 2 with an attack of 3, targeting 2 enemies in a straight line. A move and attack on the bottom of a card. Lava Pyroclast or Rock Pyroclast, it doesn't matter. Take Cinderlance. It's just a superior card in every way. The Lava Pyroclast is going to give up Melted Armor to take this, and the Rock Pyroclast is going to give up Eruption. I don't want to overstate how difficult it is to set up a good attack with Feed the Beast. It's certainly doable, and it's a good card. I just personally think that Cinderlance is overall a much better choice for both builds. And here we are, level 9, the Pinnacle. Let's take a look at our most powerful cards, starting with Stone Armor. Stone Armor is our second fastest card with a crazy initiative of 9. The top half is an ongoing buff that lets you negate damage by destroying adjacent obstacles. It also generates a leaf and nets you 2 XP. The bottom half is a move of 3 with a jump. Plus you get a shield equal to the number of obstacles or objectives next to you when you stop. Our other choice is Calamity. Calamity has an initiative of 35 and is our best terrain generating card, hands down. The top half lets you create 3 hazardous terrain tiles and 3 obstacle tiles in the same room as yourself. Then all enemies in that room suffer 4 direct damage. Plus, you can consume fire to add 2 more hazardous terrain tiles and consume leaf to add 2 more obstacles. It's a burner, but in short, you can absolutely fill a room with this card. Plus, you get 2 XP. The bottom half is also nuts. You get to move every enemy in the room for 1 with you controlling where they move, meaning you can move enemies into hazardous terrain or move them in or out of range of upcoming attacks. It's an incredible control ability. Lava Pyroclast should absolutely take Calamity and give up Igneous Path for it. Again, you really only need 1 big burner terrain generator card, and you cannot beat Calamity for that use. Stone Pyroclast may be tempted to take Calamity. It's a great terrain generator for them too. But for the Stone build to be all that it can be, you really want Stone Armor. The ongoing buff that lets you negate damage by obliterating obstacles is what makes this build shine. And since you built this to tank damage, not deal it, you'll want to give up Quenched Rage for this. There you have it. That's our leveling up guide for the Pyro class. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And we'll try and make some more content like this. In the meantime, I will see you soon. Thanks for watching.